Okay, let's go. Let's go with the second half of the class. My name is Sadaraja, so I'm your interviewer for tonight. And it's my pleasure to welcome Vanaraji and the Sangha from Mid-Essex, all the way from Mid-Essex. So you'll probably need to, so those of you who are going to be interviewees, you'll need to unmute now. And Adele's going to do her magic and she's going to put us all on to speaker view. So we'll need to go on speaker view now, and then everybody can see us. We'll be highlighted. So if you can do that now, that should all just sort of happen by magic. Great. Wonderful. Is that all of you? Is there anybody else coming?
Yes, Jerry is here. Laurie's just arrived and Jerry is also with us. There he is.
Jerry. Hello, welcome Jerry. Hello. So is this all of us then, do you think?
Yes, I think it is, because I don't think Lisa has arrived. But
okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, let's just go with things as they are. So a big warm welcome to you from Mid-Essex. As you probably know, we've had this series for the last few weeks, what makes you a Buddhist, and we've been all the way around the world. We started off in Mexico, we've been to India, Orissa in India, we met the Sangha in Istanbul in Turkey, Berlin, and last week we were in Ireland. So now we've come back to the UK for the final series, and so it's our pleasure to welcome you from Mid-Essex. So I spent many years working in Ipswich and Colchester centres, and I don't know anything about Mid-Essex. So I'm really excited to learn all about you and what you've been doing over there, and hearing about that. So what I'd like to do first of all is ask you, Vanaraji, you're the chairman, aren't you, of Mid-Essex? So all I know is that you've got a centre. I've had a look at your website in Southwood and Ferrers. You've got a centre. It looks a lovely little centre, I must say. And you've got your centre there. So could you just spend a few minutes just giving us a little bit of an overview of the centre, how it came about, and then we'll go into some questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Sadaraja. And the first thing I'd like to say is a big thank you. We feel quite honoured that you've given us this evening. It's a real pleasure to come and join your series of interviews. So thank you for that. And I have a very soft spot for Cambridge. I've been to Cambridge lots of times, beautiful centre. But also Ratna Gosha, who you all know, I'm sure, is our president. So, and we're very fortunate to have Ratna Gosha as our president. So there's a very strong connection between Cambridge and the Mid-Essex Buddhist Centre. So very briefly, I mean, in November 2015, we decided, there were 2 order members and a GFR Mitra that decided to set up a centre. There were a few little pockets of people meditating on their own, as it were, but it wasn't a formal group, as it were. So we've just celebrated our 5th birthday of setting up the Mid-Essex Buddhist Centre, and when we started, wow, it was such hard work. We were renting by the hour. And we had 2 conference rooms that had really heavy tables and lots of chairs, and all our mats and cushions and everything were in the basement, and we had to bring them up and so on. But it was really good. And one of the things it did, I mean, we had to, in half an hour, fold all these tables, put them to one side, bring everything up from the basement, set up a shrine, etc. It was hard work. But it galvanized the Sangha. Everybody just rolled their sleeves up and got on with it. And I think that's part of the success, I think, that we've had, that the Sangha feels very, very engaged. So eventually we decided to rent, and we found an old sweet shop, really old sweet shop. It was really dilapidated, but the place has got this energy of children coming in with their pennies and buying sweets, and now they're buying different sorts of sweets. So we started renting by the hour not by the hour, we started renting the sweet shop in January 2017. And the Sangha was extraordinary, just like at Champions Manor Hall, where we used to rent by the hour. The Sangha just rolled their sleeves up, and within a week, we had a shrine room already, and so on. So we had an opening, and that was great. And we've been growing very, very quickly. There's a real thirst for the Sangha, for the Dharma, for the three jewels, really, in Mid-Essex. Yeah, we are doing lots. We've got lots and lots of people at the moment. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we haven't been in the centre for a whole year. The only one that's been in the centre is Jazz. She goes in once a week to actually water the plants and collect the post. But everything that we've done has been on Zoom. So that's probably enough. Is that enough, Sadharaja? Just to give you a taste.
That's a good overview. That's fantastic. I didn't realise it was just 5 years. Drawing so many different kinds of people in. What a fantastic achievement for what's been done. I'm so pleased. All right, well, I'd like to move on a little bit. I'd like to ask a question of Jazz, if I may. I'd like to ask you, Jazz, what do you do now? You are a Buddhist and you're involved in Triratna that you didn't do before. So how has your life changed?
My life has changed enormously. I'm not going to just mention, the 4 years of study that has been so useful. I think what's changed the most for me is that I'm now able to live my life with awareness. The Dharma has given me the tools to do that. And through accepting that I create everything, through accepting personal responsibility, that my actions have consequences, it gives me the choice to turn things around, the things that don't feel right, things that put me at odds with others. I am mindful of my speech when I'm in communication with others. I used to go into the blame culture all the time when things didn't go my way. Now, instead of polarizing myself from others, I look at myself. I look at my views. Why am I feeling like this? And virtually always, sometimes, the process is really, no, not sometimes. I'm going to say always the process is painful. It's very uncomfortable because I'm being honest with myself, something that I never used to do because I realized I lived most of my life in denial, blaming others. But it's always my views, my wrong views coming from my conditioning. And for that, I shall always be so grateful to Bhante Sangharakshita. Because I think without that knowledge, I couldn't have turned my life around. I am very much aware of the subtle games that my ego plays in all aspects of my life. And if I didn't have this awareness, it'd be so easy to just slide back into what's easy, I guess. The Dharmic life does take effort. It does definitely take effort, but it takes the right effort. And I think because I've seen so many wonderful changes in my life, magic really in my life now, I have the desire to make those changes. The other thing that that I now do that I never used to do before is self-metta. I come from a background where criticism was the norm.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm now learning to accept myself with all of my flaws and to like and even love myself. And because I'm doing that, because I'm staying in or living my life in a vibration of metta, it's so much easier to rejoice in others too, which is something I never used to do. That was always alien to me. I have to be honest. Seems terrible admitting that, doesn't it? But one thing I have learned is, I have to be honest. That is crucial if I'm to make progress on this path. And interestingly enough, self-metta also connects me to Shraddha. That I have unlimited potential to grow and develop. The choice is always mine. The responsibility is always mine.
So I do. Yeah, lovely to hear that. Gosh, great stuff. What a good start. Well, I'd like to hear a bit more from you, Laurie, if I can, as well, about the changes that you've made and what's different about your life now that you're involved in the Dharma. Could you tell us?
Yeah, sure. And thanks, Jazz. That was really inspirational stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when I first discovered the Dharma, it was really a complete reorientation of my outlook. I think we're sort of born with that innate sense that we are the center of the universe, and I think we have that reinforced almost on a daily basis by our culture and I think even the natural world. I mean, obviously it's the natural world is beautiful, but it's also there's also Darwin's evolution and survival of the fittest, and it seemed that I guess to get on in life, you have to sort of think of yourself, always be at the top of the tree, always get that next achievement or whatever it happens to be, and be ambitious. And I guess as a young man, that was probably that sort of selfish sort of outlook was the way I operated. I think discovering the Dharma just opened up a completely new way of viewing life and viewing the world, and that things aren't as they appear. I think one of the toughest questions I think anybody could ever have asked me when I was a young man is, or one of the things they could have told me to do, which was very difficult, was be yourself. I mean, it was a sort of a struggle to sort of find a sense of identity. And I think when you sort of transcend that idea of self, it can be really liberating. And that was my experience. That finding the Dharma was incredibly liberating, and for the first time had a much more positive outlook and an anchor for my life, and almost it's like a filter in a sense, in order to sort of run deep philosophical questions by, or decision making by. Just run that through the filter of the Dharma and see what comes out, and see what would be the most beneficial step you could take from then on. So that was quite an early thing for me when I came across the Dharma. That's what gave me the sort of addiction, if you were. And I think now it's about sort of trying to work on those defaults, in a sense, that I was born with. Working on that selfish element, working on that I'm the center of the world outlook, and all the subtle ways that affects you, and trying to unpack all that. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. And it's not just a Western thing, is it? It goes on everywhere. People put themselves at the center of the universe, wherever they are. It's just a sort of human thing that we do. But within the Dharma, we get an opportunity to see that. As Jazz says, we've got more awareness And of course, we've got the metta as well, self-metta and metta towards other people. It's quite radical stuff. Radical stuff. And what about you, Jerry? Would you like to tell us a bit about how things have changed for you? Very good to hear from you there, Laurie. Thank you.
Jerry. Yeah, I'm relatively new to Buddhism, and it's only because of the Mid-Essex Centre that I actually sort of stumbled across it.
Yeah.
In as much as that I live locally, and they had what was the sweet shop that I used to use, and they were opposite the library. And so I sort of just became curious and went in, and then the rest is sort of everything happened from there, really. It didn't take me very long to realise that that is what I actually wanted to do with my life, because I had no preconceived ideas, because I hadn't even read about Buddhism and anything about it. It's not something I was taught at school.
Yeah.
I was just a blank canvas, and I found out. The first few months that I was there, they did some introductory courses, so I kind of found out about the Dharma and about all the aspects of it, and then I actually attended the centre properly to sort of take part in the Dharma evenings and the rituals and things, and it's kind of for me it really is a heartfelt thing. It's not something I've read about that I thought was curious. It was just something that had real meaning to me, and over the past few years I've sort of moved on to going for ordination now, and I found that as I'm going deeper into the Dharma, it's really quite challenging, because I'm very, very conscious of living my life now by the precepts, and there's just something that I just wouldn't do, and I find that in itself is rewarding, and yeah, I'm really more aware of my actions during the day now than I ever used to be. That's the one thing that I sort of really take from it, and I mean, obviously the other thing is the time concept as well. You can sort of get really wrapped up in the Dharma and everything that happens at the centre, and now it's on Zoom. I mean, you could just sort of you can spend your whole day. With me, I'm just sitting in the shed. There's just all day, doing the Dharma. So that's a nice aspect of it. But I'll stop there, I think.
So those early courses that you did, Jerry, I mean, who was teaching you at that time? Was that Vanaraji or others?
No, that was Aryasara.
Right.
Doing the courses, yeah. And when I was doing the courses was before he was ordained, because the centre, being new, we were a bit short on all the members. We had to sort of that was a bit stretched in all directions. So they had to get a few people ordained, and that's actually what's happening.
Working on that, eh? That's good. Oh, fantastic. Well, I got another question about Triratna itself. I'm currently involved in establishing a centre in Kolkata, India, and I kind of know there's a distinctive emphasis about Triratna, which I want to establish there. And I'm wondering about you, Vanaraji, what do you think is distinctive? What do you value about practicing within the Triratna culture, as opposed to some other Buddhist culture?
Yeah. Yes, I can rattle it out, because it's been something actually that I have been very grateful for very many years. And I really value what the emphasis, for example, that Triratna gives. There were 4, and after Bante's death, there are 5.
Yeah.
So the first thing that I've really, really valued about Triratna is the fact that Sangha went straight to the core teachings of the Buddha. I know that all the schools are based on the Buddhist teachings, But we're in a very fortunate position, and particularly because of the sort of person that Sangharakshita was. He was able to actually sort of look at the body of teaching and extract from that the core teaching. So I do feel that we get a very complete picture of what the Buddha was about. So that's the first thing, the fact that we are going to the core of the Buddhist teachings. The second thing is that Sangharakshita was a translator. So, I mean, I know, for example, I've got a friend in Northumberland who's joined a Tibetan group, and she often rings me and she actually says to me, I don't understand the teaching because they're using texts from a long time ago that hasn't been, it's not easily accessible. So Sangharakshita's teachings through his books and his seminars and so on are very, very accessible to us in the 21st century, 20th and 21st century. So that's a second thing that I really value. The third thing is that, I mean, I came across Buddhism when my children were very young. And I noticed that they were really worried about me picking them up from the school gate. They were 7 and 9 at the time. And I just didn't know why they were worried that I was a Buddhist. And I was saying to them, well, why are you worried? And they said to me, eventually they came out by saying, we're worried that you're going to shave your hair off, wear some robes, and come and pick us up from the school gate. So I said, oh yes, and I'll come chanting, with a rattle and their eyes. And I said, no, that's not what we're about. And that's something that has been really important to me. The fact that I've been able to bring my family and my career actually along, and I've been able to grow at my own pace. So that's the third thing. The fourth thing that I really appreciate about Triratna is the fact that there's equal ordination for men and women.
Yeah.
For me, it's really, really important. So those were the 4 traditional things that I've always said, this is what I really appreciate. But then Sangharakshita died, and Padmavajra was supposed to give a talk at Mid-Essex the following day.
Yeah.
So I said to Padmavajra, if you can't come, please don't worry. I can understand that you probably got other things to worry about. And he said, no, I'm coming. This is what Sangharakshita would have wanted. I sat there on that Wednesday evening. Of course, Padmavajra was moved because of the death of our teacher, really, but it was business as usual. So that, since Sangharakshita's death, I've got that 5th one. The fact that Sangharakshita has set up a movement, of course we're sad that he's no longer with us, but we can continue to grow so that was a long way round to actually say those are the 5 things that I really, really, there are many other things, of course, but those are the key things that I really value about Triratna.
That's very full indeed. My goodness. Thank you. Jazz, would you like to add anything to that and what you particularly value about Triratna? Because you could have got involved in something else, couldn't you? There are lots of different forms of Buddhism. There's probably quite a few of them in Mid-Essex itself.
Definitely.
That you like.
Yeah, definitely, Sadharaja. Can I just say that I walked into the Buddhist Centre quite by accident. I wasn't looking for it. I was looking for something else, the Horticultural Society.
Wow.
But Triratna drew me in, and I've been there ever since. I think what draws me is that it gives me the freedom to question without having to practice blindly, without having to accept the Dharma blindly. And I love that, that I can become whatever I desire to become. And I think the other thing I have to say, what I value about practicing in Triratna movement is the way the order members exemplify the precepts, the Dharmic life. Also the standard of teaching. And I'm talking about the standard of teaching, not just during our study, my study years at MEBC, but also in my TFO retreats at Triratna Loka. The commitment of the order members there is just outstanding. They are just, you can see that they want us to flower, that their care, their kindness, their love, it just bowls me over. I don't think I have anything more to add to that.
Well, that's very full, isn't it? And very moving to hear that you're having that experience. Fantastic. That's what we want to always hear, really. We don't always hear it. Sometimes people are not so happy, but that's great to kind of to hear that. And Laurie, what about your experience of Triratna? What is it particular that you appreciate about our approach?
I've found it particularly accessible. So there's always been a lot of activity around the LBC, which is where I've spent a lot of my time, and then the MEBC is just as busy with things now. And I think one of the things, quite practical things, is it's just very accessible. I think in my current circumstances, I work full time. I'm a husband. I'm a father, but that doesn't stop me. I don't have to become a monk. That doesn't stop me from progressing and going quite deep with Triratna. So I think that's obviously an appeal. Commitment is primary and lifestyle secondary, and that's sort of the Triratna mantra, and that obviously opens up opportunities for everyone. But I think mainly it's the example of those in the Sangha, and I think Jazz said it perfectly, that the order members within the Sangha set such a great example for us all, and to be able to practically apply the Dharma in a Western life, with people in very similar circumstances to myself is really inspirational. I mean, I think other perhaps Buddhist organisations have a more of a monastic and lay sort of setup, and it's perhaps difficult to relate to that, to the example of the monk. But in Triratna, I'm surrounded by people who, are further along the spiritual path than I am, that I can take huge amounts of inspiration and learning from. But as Jazz also says, it's just a very welcoming place, and people are really invested in your development. And that's an incredible to experience that.
That's great sounding. And well, it's an equal opportunity Sangha as well. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, you're old or young, whatever background you come from, race, colour, it doesn't matter. Everybody is equally welcome, and I think we really do exemplify that, actually. And what's been really great in this current series is we met people from so many different countries and backgrounds, and they're saying the same as you, and so that's great to hear. And Jerry, what about your experience in this regard?
Well, Triratna, I mean, the one thing I liked about Triratna and was the fact that there's no pressure on you to be anything at all. You could just be the bloke that turns up and makes a cup of tea, and that'd be fine. You could do that forever. And it's entirely up to you whether you want to progress. So from that aspect of it, that really appealed to me, and also the fact that the way that the Dharma, I found the teachings is introduced to me, it's in a way that I can understand, and a way that I can see that would appeal to people in the West. Because it's quite important. I know with our Sangha, it seemed for a while that there was more older people, but over the period of time, and especially with Zoom now, I mean, we seem to have attracted so many young people, And I think that's very important, but they might have been a bit scared if we were just sort of, you know, putting a bit of pressure on, doing too much ritual, you know, that kind of stuff. It just seems to be, they just seem to have got it just right on that score. And yeah, I just feel that I personally am just allowed to progress at my own pace and do as much as I want. There's no pressure at all. Yeah, and that sort of that appeals to me.
Oh, that's good, because that is very much the Triratna approach. That, you know, it's up to you. You come and see for yourself, or ahipasiko, as we say. It's, you can come and experience it to the extent that you want to or don't want to. I think it's the only way you can really engage in the Dharma is if you want to. I got involved when I'm 62, and I got involved when I was 14, and kind of because I wanted to, and it was very, very strange and unusual for a young kid to get involved in Buddhism, but I really, really wanted to, and I was encouraged. So kind of, you can come at any age, but it's got to come from you. That's the important bit. And I think in Triratna, there's no pressure. You decide for yourself, you know. There's always the possibility of going a bit further, if that's what you want to do, take things a bit deeper. But you decide. It's up to the individual. So I've got another really interesting question here, and I'm going to ask it, but I don't know what you're going to make of this, really, because what we're asking is what particular challenges in the cultural context of Mid-Essex do you find that Buddhism addresses? So when we ask this question to people in, you know, Turkey or something like that, well, you know, it's going to be interesting, but I'd like to know, well, what is it about Mid-Essex, and what are the cultural issues that you face in practicing the Dharma in Mid-Essex? Because there you are, you're near Chelmsford, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Are you actually in Chelmsford?
No.
Right.
We are sort of like 15 minutes in a car,
Okay.
like 17 miles from Chelmsford. Yeah.
Okay, Jazz, do you want to kick us off with this one?
Sadharaja, that is a really challenging question, isn't it?
It is.
Cultural context in Mid-Essex. Would anybody else like to go first? Because I don't know what to say here.
Yeah, I mean, I could go if you wanted me to, and
Please, Benaraji,
pass it over. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I went for many years to the London Buddhist Centre, and until we started 5 years ago, the London Buddhist Centre was my centre. And it's interesting, you're talking about, you know, the culture in Turkey, etc. I mean, the London Buddhist Centre is only 40 minutes in the car, actually, from where I live, from South Woodham Ferry, so it's not that far. But there is a big cultural difference in South Woodham Ferries, where we are. So, for example, the London Buddhist Centre is multicultural. There's a lot of different nationalities, etc. And one of the things that I notice about the London Buddhist Centre is that me, as a married woman with children, I was in the minority. The majority, or the culture was, you know, single people. It probably has changed, actually. People living in communities, and a diversity of people coming. South Woodham Ferries is quite different, and I'm noticing that, for example, in Black Lives Matter, for example, because actually the only two people that could possibly fit that quality is Jazz and I, because my grandfather was black, for example.
Yeah.
And Jazz comes from a Kenyan family, an Asian background. We don't have such a variety of people, so we're trying to attract. I mean, yeah, that is a challenge, and the majority of people are people in families. So one of the challenges as a chair is that I know that if people with families, particularly if their partners are not Buddhist, they can only actually come out one evening a week sometimes. Yeah. So if we put too many things during the week, we're having to actually adjust what we do according to the people that are coming. People are incredibly committed, but I think that it's also important that they are very committed to their responsibilities, like their jobs and their families.
Yeah.
So it's you know, it's very different to the London Buddhist Centre in terms of that, and I would quite like to attract more people from varying different backgrounds, but it's not quite so easy.
No, not so easy.
And also, I mean, I remember on a couple of occasions, for example, we've got a leisure centre very near, and they wanted us to go and teach mindfulness to their staff. So I invited them into the centre, and they actually said, "Oh no, our staff won't step into a Buddhist centre." So there isn't that kind of, it's not been easy. I remember stepping out of our centre once, and this woman accosted me and said to me, and I was on my way to pick up my granddaughter from school, so I couldn't stop for very long. And she said to me, "You don't believe in God, do you?" You know, I was thinking, oh my goodness, and you worship an idol, don't you? You know, it's that sort of question. So I think we've now been 5 years in South Woodham Ferrers, and that is changing. I think that is changing. Yeah. And I know that Jazz and Jerry both live in South Woodham Ferrers, so maybe I'm not doing justice, but I think it's a much more traditional kind of society, certainly much more traditional than the London Buddhist Centre, but we are now being accepted a bit more. I'll stop here, and maybe Jerry and Laurie might want to say, and then Jazz might want to come in as well.
The only thing I looked at that question, I found it so difficult because cultural, I think it's because of our location in the country and this area that there really isn't that diversity. So you know, so it's not really something that I found that I could answer. And yeah, I do appreciate it. I mean, I sort of when I first sort of found Triratna, and I was going on retreats with the London Buddhist Centre, and I was going up to the London Buddhist Centre, and I worked in London for many years, and I kind of know that it's a totally, you know, it is totally different to where we are now. So yeah, I think for us at the centre that would be a difficult one at this minute, simply because of the population that surround the centre. You know, yeah.
I can understand that. Laurie, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, only to say really a lot what's already been said, that I think our Sangha reflects our population really. I think my workplace is in the north of Essex, and again it's you know, there's very few minorities within, you know, ethnic minorities that work within our organisation. It just but that probably again reflects our community. And I think having said that, I think like the MEBC has perhaps got a slightly different audience to the LBC, which is where I've spent most of my time. I think Vanaraj is right. You know, people perhaps a little later in life that have families, less of a really large sort of almost transient sort of young population.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe, you know, that we have accepted, you know, we have a good representation of our community in that regard. And there's certainly lots of different characters, lots of different backgrounds, and lots of very interesting people within our Sangha.
Yeah. I mean, I think it is changing wherever you go in the country. It's changing. When I started the Buddhist Centre in Ipswich in the 80s, I mean, most people I taught hadn't even heard of the word Buddhism. They didn't know what it was, and they didn't think it was ever going to take off in Ipswich, but it has. And people just not knowing about it, not heard about it. So that's what we're working with, and it's working. So I've got one more question, really, before we move on to the kind of the Q&A slot, because we're going to have a slot where the Sangha here in Cambridge is going to ask you a few questions as well. So I've got one more, and that's about the multinational community that is the Sangha. So do you feel that you identify yourselves more with Mid-Essex Sangha, or do you identify yourself with the wider worldwide Sangha, or is it a bit of both? How does it kind of feel for you? So, Jazz, let's start with you again. How do you feel about all this?
I think that when I first started practicing, and for at least a couple of years, for me, it was just the MEBC Sangha.
Yeah.
When I started going on my TFO retreats and met women from the wider Sangha, other Triratna branches, I realized that there was quite a bit of difference between our center and the other centers. For example, I was really surprised. Can I mention a center, or is it better if I don't? There were quite a few women from the Manchester Centre, and I was really shocked, really, to find out that some of those women hadn't even spoken to all of their order members.
Oh, nice.
And then I realized that it is because their centers were so huge.
Yeah.
And it made me also so grateful that I've been involved with MEBC right from the start, and we've seen it grow, and our order members are our friends. But I have to admit that Laurie very kindly sent us a link to the interview you did with the Berlin Sangha. And I was very moved by that, you know, that they have two Sanghas there, the German speaking and then the cosmopolitan one. And that's when I really understood the significance of the international Sangha. But I also want to say that during our Dharma evenings, we have people now coming from all over the world, from India, from Germany, Italy, Spain. So that gives me a real flavor of Triratna worldwide.
Oh, great. I'm really pleased to hear that. Fantastic. Because it is an international community, and there's a lot we can learn from each other from that. But inevitably, you know, we're going to be more identified with our local Sangha, because that's where we go regularly. That's where we have our friendships, etc. But yeah, it's good that you're experiencing that in quite a direct way. Seems to be one of the benefits of the pandemic, actually, in that it's forced us to use this particular medium, and that's got benefits, I think. Jerry, do you want to add anything before we go on to the Q&A?
Yeah, I'll be very quick, because I think Jazz has sort of touched on the sort of things I had to mind anyway. And I never really thought about it. I mean, I'm very lucky, very small centre. I mean, the most noticeable thing was when I first started, I made good friends with somebody from the LBC, and she came to my mitra ceremony, which was me. I was the sort of star, and that was it. I went to her mitra ceremony, and it was a production line of about 20 people being shoved through. And so it was kind of, it just felt so much more personal. And more recently, went to Padmaloka just before the pandemic and spoke to an order member from Germany, which is very interesting. It got me realising that, it's in other places as well. And more recently, as Jess said, you know, sort of international, we've got America, you know, lovely guy from India who pops up, you know, yeah. So I'm beginning to become more aware, which I wasn't.
And it's exactly the same teachings. Wherever you go, it's the Metta-bhavana and the mindfulness, it's the Sevenfold Puja, it's the 5 precepts. It's exactly the same teachings everywhere, just different language. Some maybe slightly different style, but it's the same approach everywhere. It's uniform. Yeah. All right. Well, we've reached that point where we can open it up to the Cambridge Sangha and to people who would like to ask you some questions, which I haven't asked. And we've got one already from Anna-Lane, who's asking the team, could you give us an idea, please, of how many people attend a Sangha night?
I can answer that. There is a real appetite actually for the Sangha. I think we've grown very, very quickly because we tapped into something that was already there, waiting to wake up, as it were. I mean, I'm being asked specifically about how many people attend our Dharma night, which is Wednesday evening, for example. When we were at the centre, it was about around 30, sometimes 40 people coming. And now that we're on Zoom, sometimes you know, when there's a mitra ceremony, we've reached as many as 60, 64. So there's a lot of people. And one thing I wanted to say is that we started off with 2 order members. It was myself and Upekshadi, and now we have 5 order members, and the 6th order member is being privately ordained just now. So we're going to have 6 order members. Mike Pigeon, and his public ordination is on Thursday. But on top of that, a lot of people have asked to become mitras. So for example, we have 34 women who have become mitras. 13 of those women have asked for ordination. Wow. And in terms of the men, we've got 18 men who are mitras, and 8 of those men have asked for ordination. And we have 270 people on our mailing list. 600. I mean, this is, for me, it's not quantity, it's quality, really. But there is a huge, you know, our Facebook following is about 600 people or more. So there is a huge, thirst for the Dharma, really, in Mid-Essex. So, for example, we've got 4 groups of Mitra studies currently. And we've just started a foundation one that's got 19 people in it, which is a huge number, you know, sort of people wanting to know more about. And we've just started post-Mitra study with 15 Mitras who have completed their Mitra study. So it's almost like people have come in and they really want to get engaged in the Dharma, which is wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. But for me, really, it's quality, not necessarily quantity. But it is an important part, and we've got to address that.
You definitely need your own Buddhist centre, don't you? Decent Buddhist centre, for sure. That's a must, isn't it? So, any more questions, anybody? For our 5 guests here from the Mid-Essex Sangha, any more questions that you'd like to ask? Please put them in the chat box if you have.
I mean, one of the things, while we're waiting for questions, one of the things that we're trying to do, so for example, I've just been on a 3-day European Chairs Assembly, which happens twice a year. We normally have 2 retreats. This was on Zoom. And I was in the same group as Sila Nata, who is the chair of the Colchester Buddhist Centre, and Bodhivamsa, who is the chair of the Ipswich Buddhist Centre. We're all quite close. So we are thinking of actually obviously doing things within Mid-Essex, but also trying to expand so that when something, you know, maybe we've got a retreat, a weekend retreat or a good speaker or something, that we do things together with Colchester and Ipswich, because we're not a million miles apart. Yeah, I think there's some more questions coming in.
So we've got one question here about the centre itself, and I think you're going to say something about that at 9 o'clock, aren't you? You're going to have a presentation about that at 9 o'clock. So we've got another question here for Jazz. Could I ask Jazz what it was that took her back to the MEBC when she was actually looking for the Horticultural Society?
Would you like me to answer that first?
Yeah, please do.
It was the Dharma. It was the second half of the evening. Vanaraji gave a talk, a Dharmic talk. And, you know, to be honest, I can't remember what the talk was about. But whatever it was, it grabbed me by the throat. It just felt, so familiar. It felt so comfortable.
Oh.
And I had this weird feeling that I could now stop searching. And I hadn't even been aware that I had been searching. Yeah, that's what it was.
Do you know, I've heard that story so often around the world, where people hear a talk somewhere and they feel, this is what I want to be involved in. This is it. And I've heard that story so many times in so many different contexts. And it's always wonderful to hear it each new time. So thank you for telling us that. Have we got another question there? Here we go. There's one from Melissa, who says, do you think that the pandemic has influenced people's interest in Buddhism in Mid-Essex? So Laurie, what do you think about
that? I don't know. I've come back to the MEBC after having been away a while, actually. So I'm probably not the best person to answer, but I think there is something about the Zoom, and certainly for me, that makes it very accessible. So the sort of times that I'm doing my post-spiritual study and meeting with my GFR group, it's quite convenient for Zoom. If I had to physically get to a space to meet, that would be quite a challenge, actually. So I should imagine it's made it accessible. And I know on our Wednesday evening Dharma nights, we have guests from or visitors from around the world. So that's really interesting to see. I guess perhaps with a sense of maybe a sense of loneliness that people might be suffering in lockdown. Yeah. Obviously, the Sangha helps massively in that regard and makes us feel connected. But I hope that we continue to grow outside of the pandemic as well. I'm certain we will.
Yeah. And I've actually got a question for you from myself, actually, which is to do with the Buddhist Centre itself. You know, it's clear to me that you're obviously going to get a Buddhist Centre. You know, you're short of money at the moment, but you're going to do it. It's clear. You're very, very determined. Do you think that Buddhist Centre will be? It'll be used as a Buddhist Centre, but do you think it'll get used for other things as well, like, I don't know, yoga classes, or will there be other things going on there? Or cultural activities, or arts activities, or that kind of thing? What do you think?
Do you want me to answer?
Yeah.
To start the answer? I mean, already our little tiny sweet shop is used for yoga. The shrine room is rented out for yoga.
Yeah, of course.
And in the downstairs is a bit of a TARDIS, because we've managed to have a room that is used for people giving massage, for example, or for face-to-face, you know, sort of counselling or CBT. That's already been used. And we have opened our doors. For example, we do open days and invite the public in to do various things.
Oh,
but we are looking for a much bigger, we obviously need a much bigger place. And we definitely, I mean, what we would like to do is to actually find somewhere where we can have a vegan cafe. Would really, really like to do that.
yeah.
And we've got an order member who's got 10 years experience of running her own cafe,
Oh, well.
waiting in the wings actually to actually come in and do that and continue with the you know, the therapies and the massage and the yoga. Yeah.
Oh, really good. Yeah, fantastic. Well, we've got a little bit more time. Is there one last question from anybody? If not, we can move on to the next bit. Anybody else got a question? No? Okay. All right. So if we can now, is it, Adele, is it possible to watch the video now? Hello, come in, Adele.
I'm just doing it.
Okay, great, fantastic.
Thank you, Adele.
Your voice is very familiar to me, Sadaraja.
Is
I
it?
must have listened to several of your talks on Free Buddhist Audio. So it's very strange when you get to put the voice to the face. But it's great to meet you.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, that's good. I forget that I do so many talks and people hear them around the world. Yeah, that's nice. Thank you. Here we go. Here's our little video. Off we go.
There's no sound. Adele, is there a problem with the sound?
I can hear the sound. Can you not hear the sound?
No,
No.
we can't.
Okay, let me try again.
Somebody's saying you need to share the audio. Zoom options.
Let's give it one more go, and if it doesn't work, then Vanaraji will she'll step in.
Hello, my name is Marion, and I've been attending Mid-Essex Buddhist Centre since its inception in 2015. We began by hiring a room once a week at Champions Manor Hall in South Woodham Ferrers. Then we managed to rent an ex-sweet shop in Trinity Square. This was at the end of 2016. We worked over the Christmas holidays to prepare the shrine room. And then a year or so later, we finally had enough cash to be able to convert the lower floor. We got a kitchen and a meeting place. Everyone chipped in, decorating, doing woodwork, cleaning, and soon it was habitable. The Sangha really pulling together, everyone offering their skills in whatever way they could. But like Topsy, we've grown, and our lovely centre's bursting at its seams. This is wonderful because it means that we're reaching so many more people with the Dharma. And since lockdown, we've been joined on Zoom by many people from all over the UK and beyond. We're now in this wonderful position of needing somewhere larger than our current premises. And because of some very generous donations, we're well on the way to realizing this. But we still need a lot more to enable us to purchase something which will fulfill our current needs and also taking us into the future. So we're running skills auctions, and Sangha members are offering all sorts of skills and services to raise funds, making many different things available. and details of this can be found on our website. One of our fundraisers said she was nearly in tears, just how kind and generous all our Sangha members were. So any gift you can give, however small, will be most gratefully received, because a drop of generosity creates an ocean of loving kindness, and it will be put to extremely good use. The virus has made us all realise just how vulnerable and insubstantial life can be. And I truly don't know what I would have done without the support of the Sangha over this past year. Having a special place to come together for pujas, mitra study, going for refuge, and to discuss the Dharma. This is so important. It's so nourishing and uplifting, necessary for spiritual friendship and spiritual growth. So if you can look upon the MEBC with deeds of loving kindness and open-handed generosity, it will be so much appreciated. Thank you for your time.
So thank you so much, Adele, for sorting all that out for us. Adele's really great with her technical skills and hosting, because I haven't got a clue with these things, and if it was left to me, it wouldn't happen, I'm afraid. So thank you, Adele, for all that. That's been really good. Vanaraji, is there some details now that you can give us for people who want to donate?
Yes, please. Yeah, I mean, we're very keen. The trustees and everybody, really, the whole Sangha is very keen for us to actually be able to get a centre, just to secure the Dharma within Mid-Essex for the future. We'd like that to be available. And even before the pandemic, we were squashed in the shrine room and when we were having cups of tea, but it was very friendly and everything. But we haven't been able to enter the centre or run anything at the centre because nobody wants to be shoulder to shoulder with anybody having cups of tea and meditating together because of the pandemic. And it's not just because of the pandemic. I think because we've been on Zoom, our numbers have grown substantially. We are much larger now, and it was a squash before, and you know, it's even worse now because we've got far more people. So yes, we've done very well. We had a GFR Mitra who donated £100,000 to the Buddhist Centre to put down as a deposit, and that's why we were able to actually start thinking about getting our own place. And Windhorse Trust has given us a very favourable loan, a very large and favourable loan, but we are still short of 100,000. We had a property in mind and we offered 400,000, and we've been raising money furiously to try and get to that amount. We're still short of that amount, but once we get a property, we're going to need money to move in, and also money to adapt the property so that it's suitable for a Buddhist centre. So we're still trying to raise funds. Any amount, even any change in your pocket that you can give us will be so greatly appreciated. Fundraising continues, it still continues, and we are going round to different places actually doing a similar sort of approach that we're doing here. We're very grateful to you at the Cambridge Buddhist Centre for giving us this opportunity to make an appeal. Adele, I don't know if you have the slide that came along with the video that you could project. If you haven't got that, if you allow me to share, I could actually project the slide myself. Adele, have you got
Can you project it yourself? You should be able to share screen because you're a co-host.
Okay, all right. Let me just give me a minute. It's actually saying enter the on-screen code for Sony KD. I don't have the code, so I might not be able to project it. It doesn't matter if we can't project it, because I could we have got a Just Giving page, and it's been terribly exciting to actually see it growing. You see the percentage and the growth, as it were. We're up to about, I think, 32, kind of just short of 33.
Link into the chat box, that'd be great.
Sorry, say that.
If you can put the link into the chat box for us to donate.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I will.
So, Kaliana D, you've got some announcements now, I believe.
Oh, and I'm not muted. I have got some announcements indeed. Well, first of all, I just want to say a huge thank you. Thank you to Sadaraja for conducting a fab interview, and a really big thank you to Vanaraji and Jerry and Laurie and Jazz. That was a really delightful interview, very insightful. I feel very considered answering of the questions. Oh great, Adele's put up the Just Giving link in the chat. So do if you feel moved to, please do give to the fund for the Mid-Essex Centre. I have to say I've got this magical feeling about Mid-Essex now, which I knew nothing before, but it's like it's this place that people walk past. I think, oh, that's the old sweet shop, I'll just pop in, or oh, I think that's the Horticultural Society, I'll just pop in, and then their lives get changed. So I think it'd be wonderful for you to have your own property and for so many more lives to be changed. So yeah, do give to such a great project, and just how delightful to have the Dharma thriving. You know, it's our region actually. You know, we're not so far away. To have it thriving in yet another place, it's fabulous. So sadhu on all your work in Mid-Essex, like starting with 2 order members, and look at you now, it's fantastic. So yeah, sadhu. Yeah, so I've got a few announcements. What was I going to say? So we've got a meditation morning on Saturday morning. I think it starts at 9:30, and the title is Discipline is Joyful. So if you wish to find out how discipline is joyful, do go along to the meditation morning. Again, thank you, Adele. She's put the link in the chat. We've got a really special event on Monday evening, 7 till 9. It's interesting, actually. There was quite a bit of talk in that interview about sort of people asking for ordination, and then sort of new order members appearing, and we have 7 new order members in Cambridge who've all been ordained over recent months, and we're having a welcome back evening for them on Monday, 7 till 9. It would just be magical. Do come along if you can. They're just such joyful events to kind of meet the new beings who've come back from being ordained, and hear a little bit about perhaps their experiences or their magical new names. So yeah, it will be a very joyful event. It's very joyful for the whole Sangha, actually, when there are new order members. So do come along to that if you would like to. Yeah, that's this Monday, the 12th of July. Everybody is welcome. Do book for that. It's, yeah, Adele's put the link up, so you do need to book to get the link to come along to that. And then just lastly, our relaunch weekend, 24th of July, which is the Saturday, 10 till 5. Come along. There's all sorts of things happening. Particularly come along if you've never been to the physical building of the Cambridge Buddhist Centre before, which many of us may not have done. Or of course, if you have, just come along. It will be a great opportunity to just sort of, meet up, and there's various activities happening on that day. And the following day, I can't remember who said it now, but somebody talked about Melissa becoming a Mitra. Melissa and I've lost count, I think 5 other people, maybe more, are becoming Mitras on Dharma Day. So the celebration of the Buddha's teaching. It'll be a big festival day, and as part of that we'll have Mitra ceremonies, which again will be a really wonderful thing to be part of. So do come along. It'd be very good to see you there. Okay, I think that's everything. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. Oh, next week at Sangha night, we've got 3 personal talks. I'm not the right person to be giving this announcement. I don't know what the talks are about. I don't even know who's giving them, but there will be 3 personal talks. I'm sure there'll be more details on the website. But yeah, come along. Do come along for those. So see you next week. Big thank you again to Mid-Essex, Sadhu, and all the very best for your exciting adventures to come. And yeah, have a good week, everybody. See you soon.